and valued development partners. Your presence here today reflects our shared commitment to advancing financial inclusion and building a resilient, forward-looking digital economy for Bangladesh. Our first session will be an introduction to the Global Interoperable Payment Platform, IIPS, and practical experiences of using it. This session will be chaired by Dr. Khurshid Alam, Executive Director of Policy Research Institute. Following this, our chief guest, Dr. Ahsan H. Mansur, will highlight the importance of IIPS in advancing Bangladesh's financial inclusion and digital economy. This session will also involve insightful discussion from Muhammad Zakir Hossain Choudhury, Deputy Governor of Bangladesh Bank, and Mr. Arif Hossain Khan, Executive Director of Bangladesh Bank. Mr. Jason Lam, Deputy Director, and Ms. Snigdha Ali, Country Lead for Bangladesh from the Gates Foundation's IF team. Ms. Joanna Wisniaka, Associate Partner at Glenbrook. Mr. Sohail Javad, Executive Director of the State Bank of Pakistan and Interim CEO of Rast Payments Pakistan. Mr. Steve Martin-Haley, Director of Market Development, and Ms. Julie Guetta, Technical Solutions Lead, Asia of the Modulo Foundation. To officially begin our program, I would like to invite Dr. Khurshid Alam to deliver his welcoming remarks. Sir, please. Sir, I would like to invite you on the stage. Please take your seat. I would like to invite our Honourable Chief Guest, Dr. Ahsan H. Mansur. Please take your seat. And Dr. Khurshid Alam. Now I would like to invite Mr. Zakir Hossain Choudhury, Mr. Arif Hossain Khan, Mr. Jason Lem, Mr. Snigdha Ali, Ms. Zoana Wisniaka, Mr. Sohail Javad to take the seat on the stage, please. Also, I would like to invite Mr. Stephen Martin-Haley and Ms. Julie Guetta. Please take your seat on the stage. Thank you. To officially begin our program, I would like to invite Dr. Khurshid Alam to deliver his welcoming remarks. Sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's stakeholders discussion on interoperable payments in Bangladesh, organized by Policy Research Institute with support from the Gates Foundation. I would like to extend a special welcome to our chief guest, Dr. Ahsan H. Mansur, Governor Bangladesh Bank, and express our sincere gratitude for his presence today. We are also honored to have with us representatives of the Gates Foundation, Deputy Director Sam, country lead Signa Ali, and as well as distinguished guests from Mojalu Foundation and Glenbrook, who will be sharing global insights and experiences on inclusive payment systems. Finally, I warmly welcome all our panelists from banks, MFS, mobile financial service providers, telecom operators, regulators, development partners, who will be discussing industry perspective in the second session, which is very important. Your participation will make this consultation very valuable. As we know, Bangladesh stands at a pivotal moment in its digital transformation journey. Over the past decade, mobile financial services like bKash, Nagad, and Rocket have enabled millions to access digital financial services. They have done the heavy lifting as far as, and they've put, especially bKash, put us in the global map. Yet nearly half of the adults, it's a little dated, almost 47%, still lack access to formal financial services. And fragmentation across banks, mobile wallets, and other financial institutions continue to create barriers to efficiency, innovation, and equitable access. We are still a cash economy, so cash continues to dominate the economy, limiting transparency, driving inefficiencies, and holding back broader financial inclusion. Overcoming these barriers is not simply a matter of technology, it is both governance challenge and a development imperative. A transition towards a cashless economy is therefore critical for expanding this financial access, particularly to women, rural population, youth, and informal workers. Modernizing government-to-person, G2P payments and social benefits, strengthening economic formalization, credit access, and leading to better tax compliance in future. Today's consultation focuses on Inclusive Instant Payment System, or IIPS, as a strategic enabler for a cashless Bangladesh. IIPS can transform digital finance by providing secure, low-cost, real-time transactions across banks, mobile financial service providers, and telecom operators. By emphasizing interoperability and inclusivity, these systems can even serve people with low literacy and basic feature phones, ensuring that no one is left behind. We'll be seeing some demonstration to what it can do, because we have quite good presentations on that coming up. The consultations, therefore, aims to share global learnings from countries which have demonstrated the potential of IIPS to empower communities, enhance transparency, and drive economic growth. assess the opportunities and challenges of adopting IIPS in Bangladesh, build consensus on a roadmap for inclusive, interoperable payments, strengthen collaborations across regulators, financial institutions, MFS providers, telecoms, and also development partners. The discussion is critical for Bangladesh as we seek to identify the opportunities, benefits, challenges, and risk of IIPS, as well as pathways for effective collaboration. Today's discussion will provide a platform for key stakeholders to exchange ideas and offer feedback on how Bangladesh can design and implement an inclusive and interoperable payment system. I'll encourage all discussants and participants to share your candid insights, practical experiences, and recommendations during this consultation so we can collectively advance our agenda. I thank our chief guest, our special guests from Gates Foundation, Moja Loop, and Glenbrook, and all participants for joining us today. We look forward to a productive, evidence-driven, and collaborative discussion that will help Bangladesh take an important step towards a cashless future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful words. It is now my distinct honor to invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Ahsan H. Mansur, Governor of Bangladesh, to deliver his thoughts on the importance of IIPS in advancing financial inclusion and strengthening Bangladesh's digital economy. Sir.
Thank you. Good morning to you all. And let me first thank Gates Foundation and PRI for organizing this event. This is an opportunity to amplify the way the Bangladesh Bank is thinking about the future of cashless Bangladesh. This is a very important part to that direction. Because we have to ensure instant payment system as part of the cashless society. You know, we all know that Bangladesh has made significant progress over the years in terms of financial inclusion. But at the same time, we're still significantly behind. The numbers, maybe it is financial inclusion indications points to about 64% or in Bangladesh Bank estimate. World Bank, however, comes up with a little lower number, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that progress has been made and progress continues, but we still need to go along. Even if it is at 60s, still we have about 35–40% left to be covered. And also, even those who are covered, it is not only the breadth, but also the depth of the financial inclusion that is also important. Just not the 100% coverage. Even if we achieve 100% coverage, we have to go deeper in terms of financial inclusion and the depth of the engagement of the community with the financial system. Just not touch and go, but be remaining and getting more and more deeply involved with the financial system. That's also a challenge. So, we are addressing the issue of financial inclusion in multiple channels. Technology is one of the backbone of this transformation. There is no question, there is no doubt about it, that this reaching out to the unreachable is possible or has to be done both humanly as well as with technology. Both efforts have to be done. So we have, Bangladesh Bank is designing or has been working on taking into account all the elements that has developed over the years in the financial sector, all the players, and leveraging them to reach out to that unreachable. What are those elements? If we start with microcredit, for example, it's a very vast sector, very large sector, but still less than 10% of the banking sector. So it's still sizable, but not that. Secondly, it is also technologically backward. And it's very labor intensive and it's very costly. So we need to deal with that segment also, because they are already at the grassroots level. We just don't want to walk away from that. We want to take them along and partner. So we need to transform them digitally to inclusive finance. Secondly, banks have been doing their banking operation, but at the end of the day, we know the banks. Banks make their profit from wholesale operation, from foreign trade, from foreign exchange, and all those things. And there's a limit that the banks can go in terms of reaching out that. That being said, still significant progress has been made in terms of agent banking, and also in terms of SME financing. Particularly, agent banking is gaining quite a bit of momentum. The number of agents is now about 20,000, and it is rapidly increasing. So, if I compare it with microcredit, there are about 25,000 microcredit offices across Bangladesh. Agent banking is about 20,000. So, in a year or two, agent banking can supersede microcredit in terms of coverage. And in terms of delivery of loans, there are significant issues there. As I have noticed, other than the BRAC Bank, not many other banks are in the lending business of the agent banking. And that's where we need to change. That's another thing. But again, agent banking is also technology driven and needs to be technology driven where it is not. A simple handheld computer with connectivity, internet, and so on is good enough for the agent to move from house to house, shop to shop, and do their daily online connected with the head office. So that's the model that we already have in many banks, and where you don't have it, we need to have that model so that it reduces the cost, it enables them to reach out to the households, and so on. In order to improve the reach, we have Bangladesh Bank have recently maybe a little bit of, I would say, coercion, a little bit of forcing onto the banks, that 50% of the agents from now on have to be free. We want it because we believe that it is not only fair to have an equitable participation in the banking system for the female, but also in terms of reaching out to the unreachable, to the particularly the housewives, daughter-in-laws, mother-in-laws, or the daughters in the families in rural areas, the female agent can have a much bigger advantage compared to him. And if you want to break that barrier, the front door, which is closed for men, can open with a woman agent, and he can go to the bedroom, get to the kitchen, and do the registration. So we believe that even if it is a little difficult initially to get some of these female agents, but I personally don't think it is difficult, because in Bangladesh, there are more high school girls than high school boys. So obviously, you can get a SSC pass, that means high school graduate or intermediate graduate, female, in every village, more than one, unquestionably. So it's not it's not a difficult thing. Maybe they may not have the right kind of other attributes, like having a shop in the bazaar, having the capital, and so on. We have to compromise on those things, but train them better, make them dedicated foot soldiers of the banks. I'm hopeful and convinced that they can deliver even better results than those with the shop owners and other things who are serving as. in your case. So my message to the banking community is that you need to look for, find and comply with the 50% and even exceed it. I mean, 50% is not a binding constraint, it's a minimum constraint. So that you can make it be inclusive, you can make it much more effective in terms of reaching out to the unreachable segment of the society. We are allowing the conventional instruments also, like credit card, debit card, this, that. There were usually in Bangladesh kinds of restrictions in the sense that, well, if you have a credit card, it's perceived that you must be a taxpayer and perceived that you must have to submit a tax return along with the application of your debit card or credit card. So that was a binding restriction that was unhelpful. And after long deliberations in this last budget, this has been withdrawn. So we hope that credit card acceptance will increase significantly. We don't want to exclude any instrument from our case. Everything should be there as it is, but be enhanced in there. So what we are going to do is we are going to increase the limit of the credit card. We are going to encourage the banks to issue more credit cards and not to be hindered or not let the NBR to use that holding credit card as an instrument of that you are rich and so on. You should do your other due diligence. But this is a financial instrument. You should not be looking at it from the tax point of view. But at the end of the day, my message to the NBR is also that it is going to help you in terms of transparency and financial transaction transparency. So you get better tax outcome out of it anyway. So don't kill the golden goose when it is not even born. The eggs are when it is eggs, you don't kill the goose with that. So wait for the eggs and let the geese be healthy. In addition to that, we are also working on mobile financial service, you know that. It has a deep penetration across Bangladesh and sufficient, a number of piloting has already been done with nano loans, and nano loans are getting now popular. The limit is now up to 50,000 taka instant credit. No application, nothing, just push your button and you can get it. So we are still reviewing the performance of this loan. We are seeing how this algorithm is working, how effectively it is identifying, how much is the NPL for this type of loans. And based on that continuous evaluation, we will increase the limit as we go. So we just increase it from 30 to 50. We pause for a few months, look at the results, and then go for next round. We are hopeful that as much as the bKash has penetrated in terms of coverage of the population, we have two things to do: front end and the back end. Front end is still cash. I get my cash, put it in the system, and go to a store and put it in there, and it becomes digital. Goes to my family or my whatever, wherever I want to pay, settle my bills and things. But when it goes to my family, it gets a cash again and used as cash. We want to work on both ends. And that's a big challenge, particularly the back end, where the housewife takes it out or the family takes the cash out. Instead of that, if that money remains digital and used in every store for every goods and services and transactions, that's what we would like to achieve. That's where bKash is trying, bKash Nagad, etc. is trying, but not yet there. That's where we are trying also to introduce the QR code. So QR code or Bangla QR code, as we call it, it's going to be refocused in our strategy. We have already written to our local government advisor, and he has promptly made the request, not the request, the instruction to all the local government authorities, including union council, corporations, city corporations, municipalities, and so on, that any trade license to be issued must accompany, holder of trade license must have QR code in display in the store from now on. So every time you go for trade license, you have to have that requirement as part of that. Objective is that you make QR code popular, make it mandatory for everyone holding trade license, and everybody who operates any business in Bangladesh has to have a trade license. So they has to have that card displayed in the hotels or in the restaurants or in even a rickshawala might have his card, and you can scan it and so on. So we want that the back end, so that the money that goes digitized through the mobile financial system remains in the digital form and percolates in the economy, cashless. That's our objective. Currently, we are using too much cash. Every year, the demand for cash is growing by 10% in Bangladesh, cash demand, despite all the digitization and everything. So I ask, where is the saving? So far, there is no saving. 20 years back, there was a growth of 10%. 20 years later, today, is the growth of 10% in the demand for cash. So we have to break that cycle. And that's why we have to work on many approaches to break this, what you called, I used to see an ad in the US, that you take a bite out of the crime. So you take a bite out of this cash economy. With every bit of intervention, if you take 5%, 10%, this, that, you cumulatively, you achieve a big segment of cashless economy. So our estimate is that the cash demand, the growing cash demand as of now is costing us, the banking system, 20,000 crore. That means $1.5 billion plus every year. It is our cost on the banking system. And the estimate that prepared by IFC is that the loss of revenue for the government is about 1.5 trillion taka. And that is about 12 or 15 billion dollars. So that's a lot of money that can be saved or earned by cashless transformation of the economy. So we want to do it. As part of that also, along with the other things, we have now, on the nano loan, we are hopeful that transformation happen. On the microcredit, we are hopeful that microcredit will become, they have to be technologically connected with the operating, with the instant payment systems and so on. Because otherwise, first of all, their cost of fund, cost of management is very high, and they will be out of business, not too distant future. I conveyed the same message to Professor Yunus also, that they have to transfer. What was there in the 80s is no longer technologically sustainable in the 20s. So we need to transform that segment. We are bringing in the digital banks in Bangladesh. The request for proposals are on. We want to move very fast, and bring in the additional players in the market to participate. So all these players together, we need an integrated system. An integrated payment system, instant payment system, and that's where we are here today to set it up. And I will again thank the Gates Foundation for offering us the help. You know that Bangladesh introduced a system which used to be called Binimoy, but that was an unfortunate failure. And it was destined to fail because it was part of the crony management and capitalism system given to mom and pops kind of firms, and they wasted the money and the time, more importantly time. And so we have to restart that process again. We hope with the Gates Foundation and the experience that the Mojarup system has gained over time, we will inherit an instant payment system which is proven, time-tested. In many countries it is in operation, and we'll have a successful launching of that down the line. And I thank the Gates Foundation for their help in that effort. So we look forward to work together to build up a system which will connect every player in the financial system into one singular platform. And it will be instant payment, instant settlement, and so on. So let's work towards that. Today's session is the beginning of that process. We had one long round of discussion in London. This year, was it? March. In this year, in March. And this is a follow-up to that. And every time we meet, we make progress. I would only say that we'll have to move very fast. We are ready for it. And I hope our counterparts are ready as well. So we can successfully launch and operate the new system for the service of the community and the financial system of Bangladesh. Let me thank you all for hearing me out, and let's look forward to the rest of the deliberations during the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring words. Now I would like to invite Mohammad Zakir Hossain Choudhury, Deputy Governor of Bangladesh, to share his insightful thoughts. Sir, please.
Thank you. Very good morning. Today's Chief Guest, Honourable Governor, Bangladesh Bank, Deputy Director and Bangladesh Country Lead of Gates Foundation, representative from Mojalo Foundation, PATH, Green Blue Partners, leaders from banking sector, MFS, and distinguished honorable guests, warm welcome, warm greeting to everyone. In the financial sector in Bangladesh, traditionally banks are used to provide payment services to the participant payments ecosystem. In recent decades, with the help of technological advancement of number of non-bank financial institutions, MFS, and fintech companies are now providing payment services and other banking services. To some extent, these fintech companies play the vital role in retail payment ecosystem. Among those fintech companies, MFS provider, PSP, PSO are very significant. With the help of those institutions, it became easier to include the base of economy in the financial system and moving money from city to village economy. Currently in Bangladesh, all of the participants of payments ecosystem are operated in silo mode and using limited interoperability. For delivering financial services to the large number of people of the country, it became very urgent to introduce unconventional and innovational payment system and settlement system which connects all the players of the ecosystem. In this case, IIPS may play the vital role. Sorry. If we could connect all the players of the ecosystem, the number and the volume of digital payments will be even higher, and eventually it will be a giant leap to achieve the goal of cashless Bangladesh. Recently, World Bank reports recognize that Bangladesh is rapidly digitizing with a population of 170 million, including 129 million adults age and 44 million youth. With the demographic landscape, the country boasts nearly universal mobile readiness, where 186 million mobile connections, 129 million internet users, and 93 million smartphone users have the opportunity to be onboarded for digital payment. Bangladesh Bank has been looking forward to materializing the opportunities and gets benefits of digital payments over the use of cash throughout all form of payments. Because we would like to mobilize our resources towards building digital payment infrastructure, we focus on quantifying the cost, benefits of cash payments and related infrastructure, as well as the cost and benefits of digital payment systems, which would help us to assess quantify the direct and indirect cost, risks, revenues, benefits, and cash transaction across key cash usage value chains and direct and indirect cost of digital payments to the various stakeholders as well. Bangladesh Bank highly appreciate the partnership with Gates Foundation for the instant payment solution agenda in Bangladesh. I would like to thank the concerned team for their great endeavor of shaping this initiative, and thanks to the organizer for this nice event. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mohammad Zakir Hossain Chaudhry, Deputy Governor of Bangladesh, for sharing your insightful thoughts. We will now hear the keynote address from Mr. Arifin Hossain Khan, Executive Director of the Payment Systems Department at Bangladesh Bank, who will share the strategic vision for IIPS in Bangladesh payment system ecosystem. Sir.
Honourable Governor of Bangladesh Bank and chief guest of today's day-long stakeholders discussion on interoperable payments in Bangladesh, representative from PRI and Gates Foundation, members from Mojalop and other foreign institutions, distinguished guests, my colleagues from Bangladesh Bank, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. As per Payment and Settlement Act of Bangladesh, Bangladesh Bank is authorized to give approval, monitor, and supervise the payment-related activities in Bangladesh with a view to ensure an inclusive, affordable, faster, user-friendly, and secure payment ecosystem. Bangladesh Bank has started its digital payment journey in 2009. Today, by a presentation, we will try to understand the salient features of payment ecosystem in Bangladesh. This slide shows the area covered by today's presentation. According to BTRC, the population aged between 15 to 64 is considered as adult people, and size of this population is 116 million. Against this population, mobile phone connection is 160%, total internet user is 117%, and mobile internet users is 105%. Against the adult population, we found that financial inclusion, 185 million people, 126% MFS account against the 116 million people which are considered as adult people. Number of active MFS account is 143%, and total banking, internet banking customer is 10%, and total debit card is 37%. Let's see the total landscape of financial inclusion. There are 3 players: bank, MFS, and MFI. Under 61 scheduled banks, 165 million plus accounts is there. 13 licensed MFS is active now in Bangladesh, and there is 146 million registered account. Among them, 89.4 million are active now. Under 724 licensed MFI, microfinance institutes, within their 26,000 branches, 41.55 million clients are included there. Existing payment system, the backbone of Bangladesh payment ecosystem of our country, there are 4 platforms now: Batch, NPSP, RTGS, and Binimoy. Batch, which has 2 separate wings: Bangladesh Automated Check Payment System and Bangladesh Electronics Fund Transfer Network. BSCPS is established in October 2010. Under this platform, monthly high-value transaction is 1731 billion BDT, and regular value is 1501 billion. Under BEFTN, monthly transaction is 946 billion. NPSB, transaction of monthly under the NPSB, 68 billion in ATM system, 4.3 billion is under POS machines users, 235 billion is IBFT, and 820 million under Bangla QR. We have to increase the number of Bangla QR user. Now, RTGS. This is the platform, real-time gross settlement platform for high value. We found that $4625 billion is transacted by this platform monthly. Binimoy is a interoperability. It established in 2022, but its penetration is not highly appreciated. Now, only 12 banks, 3 MFS, and 1 PSP is included in this platform. This slide represents the graph of growth by value of 4 platforms working under the payment system department. Cashless initiative. Now, one of the prime objectives of payment system department as well as the objective of Bangladesh Bank is to create a cashless society. Why? Because it reduces the cost of printing currency, it reduces the risk of theft, loss, fake note, etc. It improves financial management, benefit of hygiene, increase efficiency, financial inclusion, and it offer reward and benefit, customer satisfaction, and environmental benefit. And to implement the cashless society, we have to take some strategies. These are payment infrastructure digitalization, enhance interoperability, financial inclusion, financial literacy and awareness, merchant onboarding in the marginal level, inspire people to use financial apps, interministerial coordination, capacity development of banks, MFS, PSP, and PSO officials. This slide represents the present scenario of MFS. There are 13 licensed MFS now working in Bangladesh. Under this 13 MFS, number of cash transaction is 115 billion. Total cash out is 430 billion, and total P2P transaction is 429 billion. This slide represents the PSP PSO scenario. Total licensed PSP PSO entities are 21. The major market penetrator is SSL Commerce, others are ITCL, Talipay, etc. Challenge: every provider or operator has different modus operandi. IDTP Binimoy experience, limited participants and slow integrations, poor merchant onboarding, almost no awareness and low ubiquity, user experience complex, poor O&M support and operational control related challenges. We will now see 4 examples of success story across the globe. One is Brazil. In Brazil, that is PIX. It launched in 2020. It is a central bank model, central bank run model, and almost 250 million transactions is held in a single day in 6 April 2024. Next, the Rust from Pakistan. It launched in 2022. It is also run by central bank. It is free of cost for individuals. Then UPI in India. It launched in 2016. Central bank driven public infrastructure, free of cost for users. And the last is TIPS of Tanzania. It launched in 2023, and it is also operated by central bank. From these 4 global example of interoperability, what we learn? The lessons from these 4 examples is a robust government-backed unified platform with simplified user experience, mandate from central bank, strong leadership and regulatory push is crucial. Simplify is major scenario. Use simple IDs like phone, number, or QR codes. Make it free or very cheap. Build for ecosystem growth and phased rollout. Vision for an IIPS instant inclusive payment system in Bangladesh. It is a universal addressing directory. Person to person, person to business, person to government, government to person, and vice versa. Transparent, risk-based scheme rules, dispute and fraud management, offline or low connectivity options for rural inclusion, public digital infrastructure, which is open sourcing enabling. What we expect from IIPS, our expectation is to reduce cash dependence, retain value digitally in the formal economy, increase account activity and financial inclusion, improve transparency and tax base, active participation of MSMEs, unlock digital credit, and facilitate remittance rails. Today's discussion on the Gates Foundation's global initiatives and implementation of experience of IIPS. I hope this discussion will create a value for our country. I hope and wish every success of today's program. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arif Hossain Khan, Executive Director of the Bangladesh Bank, for your informative presentation. Now we will hear from Mr. Jason Lam, Deputy Director, and Ms. Nigdha Ali, Bangladesh Country Lead of the Inclusive Financial Systems IFS team at the Gates Foundation. Will share their strategy for advancing equitable financial inclusion.
Can you hear me? Am I coming across? Yeah, so thank you. Actually, you can think of this as a bit of a commercial break because I wanted to share just a few reasons about why the Gates Foundation is interested in working together with Bangladesh Bank and with the private sector in Bangladesh to implement this IIPS. Most of you that are here have heard about the Gates Foundation work around the world, and usually that work is focused on health. The Inclusive Financial Systems team is a very small team within the Gates Foundation. The Gates Foundation has over 2,000 employees, and we are 40. Snigdha and I are 2 of the 40 that work on inclusive financial systems. And even though we're small, we're mighty, and we believe that implementing inclusive financial systems throughout our focus countries not only enables those countries to grow, but it also enables the other objectives of the foundation in health, agriculture, education to flourish. Just to give you an idea where our team fits within the Gates Foundation, there are 6 presidents at the foundation, and we sit within the group called Global Growth and Opportunity, along with Ag Dev, Global Education, Nutrition, Sanitation, and Digital Public Infrastructure. So those are the parts of the foundation which actually are crucial for growing the economy in countries. So I'm sure this theory of change, but I'm going to actually skip over it quickly in the interest of time to focus on the next slide. Is basically what are we trying to do is we're trying to increase poor people's capacity to weather financial shocks, but also take advantage of investment opportunities that they may have. In addition, we want women to have the opportunity for economic empowerment. And we believe that a formally included economy is one that will help people to manage these types of shocks and opportunities that come along. The McKinsey Global Institute a few years back did a big research project that would suggest that with full inclusion in a country like Bangladesh, you can increase GDP by 5 to 10% per year. So it's quite a big impact by having full inclusion. And so you can imagine that has a lot of positive after effects for the country. So our approach is really threefold. And we have all three parts of that here today. First is we foster regulation and policy to create an inclusive regulatory infrastructure for inclusion. The second is expanding the financial infrastructure, which is the IIPS, which we're talking about today. And then third is drive participation really through the private sector. And so we're happy to have all the banks, MFS, non-bank financial service companies, everyone here to talk about how they can contribute to including all Bangladeshis in the formal financial sector. And then finally, our goal is really to reach 80% inclusion for Bangladesh, for the globe, with little to no gender gap, and that at least 60% of those under $2 a day have the opportunity to participate as well. And so the thing I would leave you with before I turn it over to my colleague Snigdha would be that we want today to be the beginning of a very open dialogue between Bangladesh Bank, the IT ministry, the private sector, about how to achieve a successful implementation of the interoperable, inclusive payment systems in Bangladesh over the next few years. And it will only be by being honest and open and transparent that we'll actually be able to achieve that. So let me turn it over to Snigdha, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. So what we heard from the distinguished chief guest and special guest and my colleague Jason Lam is that with a 3.5 billion US dollar digital economy, 146 million mobile financial services customers with 90 million active users, a robust ID system, policy initiatives to boost digitized payments and access to credit, and a thriving IT sector and startup environment, this country actually possesses tremendous potential to be a global exemplar. However, despite all these achievements, a significant portion of the Bangladeshi population faces challenges in accessing financial services, especially those from the rural and underserved segments. This disparity is particularly prominent when it comes to between men and women and rural and urban areas. So based on the IFS strategy that Jason just went over, we partner with the public and private sector to advance our work in a country. Our Bangladesh work can be categorized in 4 thematic areas: infrastructure, gender gap, private sector, and advocacy. We supported building a digital platform called ECPE, that is an integrated payment platform for recurring bill and government and service fees. We also supported creating a digital stack that builds upon an existing digital ID layer by adding a digital payment layer and a digital layer for a smooth digital data layer for a smooth functioning of a digital ecosystem. Our support for addressing the gender gap includes a nationally comprehensive study on women's barriers to financial access, agent license credit and new bank accounts for female customers, access to credit and microfinance loans through digital platforms at a lower cost, and innovate credit and savings product that caters to women's needs. Our private sector partnership, however, was one of IFS's earliest engagements in Bangladesh. We started with bKash and then joined hands with BRAC Bank, and Bank Asia, to name a few. But for any intervention or initiative to be successful, an enabling policy environment is critical, and so is the active participation of the market players. To have a nuanced understanding of the specific needs, challenges, and priorities of a country, we fund evidence-based or research-backed advocacy projects. We have advocacy partners, and PRI has been a critical advocacy partner for IFS for many years now. this is just a snapshot of the current and recent partners of the presentation. Anyway, we have a number of current and recent partners, naming UNDP, BRAC, BRAC Bank, Bank Asia, MSC, CRD, IDEA, and of course PRI, just to name a few. As Jason and others have mentioned, today's event is just the beginning of creating a consultative space so that we hear from the industry on how to make a building and implementation of an effective, operational, transparent IIPS in Bangladesh to make the country a global exemplar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jason Lamb and Ms. Nigdha Ali for your presentation. Next, we have with us Ms. Joanna Wisniaka, Associate Partner at Glenbrook, who will speak on the Foundation Level 1 principle behind IIPS.
I promise I am using my phone only to make sure that I don't talk too much. This is a subject that I'm really passionate about, and I'm thrilled here in front of all of you to build on what's already been said about inclusive IPS and add to that conversation. So thank you for the invitation to be here. Glenbrook Partners has been privileged to work with the Gates Foundation for a number of years now in support of implementations of IPS globally, and in the development of the principles and practices that guide inclusive instant payment systems. So I'm thrilled today to speak to you a little bit more about inclusive instant payment system principles, implementations globally, and the benefits of implementing inclusive instant payment systems. So here, just very briefly, want to show this snapshot of the world. This, of course, does not show all of the IPS that are implemented globally, and maybe to orient you a little bit to what's here. You will see in the orange, these are IPS that are live globally. There, in the dark blue, you will see IPS that are being currently developed. And then there are others like the light gray, where there are countries that don't yet have a dedicated IPS, as well as some others that are moving forward with making improvements with existing IPS. The intent of this is just to show that we're seeing IPS proliferate globally, and these systems continue to be added. Here, without going into a lot of detail, orienting you a little bit to what's on the slide, we're showing, the lines show transaction volume per capita, and they're based on the number of years that an IPS has been in operation. So the starting point there on the left is year 1 of operation, and then we go through year 9 of operation. You will see there is a line that is quite distinct, that really stands out, and this is transactions per capita in Brazil's PIX instant payment system. This has been a really exemplary IPS in terms of how quickly they were able to scale their volume and include additional individuals in broaden financial inclusion because of the implementation of PIX. There are others that we show here that have also made design choices that have contributed to their strong performance. We show UPI here, Australia, and others. Now, the basic concept of IPS, there are certain core features that are common to all of the IPS, such as the instant nature of those systems, credit transfer nature of those systems, but there are also other factors that impact whether this relative performance of the systems. Some of that is external factors, such as what other payment methods are already available in the country, how enabling the environment is, regulations, and others. But a huge component of the success, the relative success of these systems, are the choices, the design choices that are within the reach of the designers, of the implementers, to ensure that these systems are inclusive, enabling, and responsive to end user needs. So here, some of this has already been mentioned. We have been supporting the Level 1 project for, again, a number of years. The Level 1 project is committed to ensuring that low-income individuals and businesses, end users' needs are met for having useful, convenient, and affordable digital payments. The inclusive IPS is the means to achieving these end user needs and goals. What does useful mean? Useful means the digital payments integrate seamlessly into end users' lives. They can pay anyone, be paid by anyone, and they're able to do this through channels that are appropriate for their particular lives. Convenient, it is easy to make these payments. The end user interfaces that they utilize to initiate the payments consider their needs, and then they are simple to use. They are not prone to error, and they really address the need for a good user experience. And of course, affordable. And we'll get into this a little bit when we talk about the specific principles, because there are a number of elements that come into this. It's affordability for the end users, but it is also affordability for participants, non-banks and banks, that are participants in the IPS itself. So then how do we achieve these goals for the end users? There are 7 specific principles that really provide the foundation for ensuring that the design of the IPS is inclusive. And I will talk briefly, very briefly, or really just scratch the surface on these, but I want to mention each one. Underneath each of these, the Level 1 project provides much more guidance around specific practices and guidance for the actual implementation, really the how for each of those. But let me just name each of them, at least at the highest level. So instant payments is really definitional. What are the core features of an instant payment system? This includes things like these are credit push systems. So it is the sender that initiates the transactions, ensuring that they have funds in their account to make that transaction. The instant nature of the system, the funds are available immediately for the receiver to use. So for example, a woman who receives a social government disbursement payment is able to use those funds in her account to immediately pay for their children's school fees. Interoperable, this has already come up in the conversation today. This means that really end users can pay and be paid by anyone. That means including banks and non-banks in the system. It shouldn't matter whether I'm sending funds to someone who uses a bank or a non-bank. As long as they have a transaction account, I should be able to reach them easily. Pay everywhere for everything. Now, payment needs are broad, and in order for them to be relevant to individuals' lives, they need to be able to support different use cases. So paying for individual purposes, paying another individual, paying merchants for goods and services sold, paying for your bills, as well as receiving payments from the government, receiving payments for digital wages. This is really critical to ensure that funds stay in the digital form. They're not cashed out. They're actually relevant for use for all key purposes. Inclusive governance. This means that the system reflects the needs of ultimately the end users and maybe most immediately the participants. All of the participants, whether banks or non-banks, small or large, have an equal voice in the design of the system. So they contribute both to the initial design of the system, and that means many of you in this room, as well as the evolution of the system. It also means ensuring that voices of end users are captured in that feedback as well. And we have some really interesting examples of how certain systems have done that effectively. Low fees for end users. Of course, affordability is critical. And to get affordability for end users, there are a number of perspectives that the L1P design takes. It really starts with the inclusive IPS taking a not for loss or cost recover plus investment model, so that the system is not implemented in order to make profit, but to cover the cost of operating. This also means that the IPS does not charge large fees. In fact, it charges ultra low fees to the participants to participate, again, allowing all types of participants to be involved. And that ultimate goal is that this is affordable for the end users. Safe payments. We know that trust in digital payments is essential for end users. In fact, many end users will not use digital payments unless they trust them. And if they have a bad experience, such as an experience of fraud, they will stop using the systems. So there are a number of steps that are essential for the IPS to incorporate into the design to make sure that that trust is built from the start. And shared capabilities. An example of shared capabilities is the IPS itself builds certain features, functionalities right at the center of the IPS, which essentially supporting the participants and not having to make those investments themselves individually. So a good example of this is fraud mitigation right at the center of the IPS. It doesn't take the responsibility entirely off the hook from the payments providers, but it provides additional capabilities at the center that the investment for those capabilities has been shared and doesn't require each individual institution to make those investments. So one thing I want to highlight here is the importance of scale. So ensuring that these systems actually grow and meet some of that scale that we've seen and the really exemplary systems. And let's talk about two specific examples of why scale drives the ability to achieve some of those principles, and then vice versa as well. So scale is really critical to achieving the low cost of the systems. Being able to generate high volume on the system enables the IPS to recover the cost of providing the features and the services without having to charge large fees, in fact, charging very low fees to participants. And when we say ultra low fees, and these are transaction processing fees to the participants, we mean very low fees. So something that we know is achievable, it's not just aspirational because we see it in existing systems, is that fee may be as low as $1 penny per transaction. Scale is also critical to achieving ubiquity. We've talked about the ability to pay anyone and get paid by anyone for any purpose. Then this means bringing more accounts into the system, into the IPS, whether those are mobile money accounts, whether those are bank accounts, and ensuring that volume is generated both through the accounts and through the different transactions that are supported. And again, the transactions that are supported really should be quite broad. Merchant payments, bill payments, government payments, and others. Really, the opportunity for scale in Bangladesh, given the population, given some of the statistics that we also heard from others, is tremendous. So tapping into that opportunity by creating this IPS with the inclusive design features will ensure that you're really taking advantage of the opportunity in front of you. I want to highlight this important point. I know we have providers in the room. creating an inclusive IPS is not really the goal in itself, as others have already mentioned. It is about bringing more individuals into formal financial services and creating these payments that are convenient, affordable, and useful. The IPS is a means to essentially expanding the pie. The market grows, the market becomes bigger. This creates opportunity for providers to tap into more accounts, open more accounts, provide more services for end users. We mentioned the shared capabilities element of inclusive IPS. With the IPS providing the rails, the rules, the shared capabilities in the middle, it means the providers can focus, and also the low cost of the system, it means the providers can focus their resources more on implementing business models that go well beyond digital payments and innovate on the digital payments currently offered. So this really is an enabler for providers to innovate and to bring more innovative new types of financial services that go beyond digital payments into the economy. Just a couple last slides. We have a little bit of time. Thank you, Honourable Governor, for mentioning the importance of including women when we're talking about financial inclusion. You know, half of the population being included and having accounts and using those accounts, that's tremendous opportunity for getting to that scale that we're talking about. We also know from research that has been done over the years that women face particular barriers in access and then usage of digital financial services. So we've been asked the question, so what can the IPS do about this? We know women's financial inclusion is a much broader topic. It takes an ecosystem approach to address some of those barriers. But we were asked the question, what can the IPS do in its design to support more inclusion of women? So we undertook the effort for the foundation to build what we call the L1P Women's Inclusion Toolkit. We are super excited that this will be launched at the end of September. So look out for that resource. This will be an online resource that provides tons of content for how do you deliberately incorporate women's inclusion into the design? What is some evidence for why this is really important for women? And there is a ton of evidence for that. And how do you actually do this? How do you do this practically? And we also provide market illustrations for how others have done this well. One of the outcomes from doing this research and coming up with this online resource is, as we think about designing better products for women, those design outcomes actually create better products for all. So it's really a win for the entire system. And then I will just leave you here with the last slide. You know, it's wonderful to see many different types of organizations and roles in this room. This implementation of an inclusive IPS is a complex endeavor. It includes lots of moving parts, and it very much includes collaboration around all of you, all of the different stakeholders. You know, regulators and policymakers that are in the room potentially will play a couple of roles. As operators and implementers and leaders of building the inclusive IPS, but also as putting regulations and laws in place that provide enablers for this to really work well. All of you providers who are in the room, you play a critical role. You are the actual face to the end users of the services that will be built on top of the IPS. And there are many others, such as fintechs. We also heard about agents who play a critical role in expanding the reach to end users and many others. So this is going to be a really collaborative effort that will require and benefit all of you here in the room and others. So with that, just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share this, and I know we're really excited for your journey in building the inclusive instant payment systems, and are here to support you in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Zoana, for your insightful presentation. We will now hear from Mr. Sohail Jawad, Executive Director of Digital Financial Service Group at State Bank of Pakistan and the interim CEO of RASP Payments Pakistan. He will joining us virtually from Pakistan to share his valuable insights from Pakistan's experience in launching RASP.
Thank you very much. I hope model. If I'm audible, may I start?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Governor, Dr. Ahsan Mansur Sahab, Deputy Governor Zakir Hussain Chaudhary, colleagues from Foundation, Bangladesh Bank and the industry. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. It's indeed a great opportunity for me to present the case of Pakistan's IPS. We call it RASP. RASP is the Urdu word for a straight and direct path. So I'll be referring to our IPS as RASP. To start with, since I've got 20 minutes, I guess, and I have a long presentation to make, so I'll just be very, very quick with the slides. If you go on to the next slide, please. I have included country demographic for Pakistan, and you can see some of the key insights from the slide here. One is that Pakistan has now one of the youngest populations in the world. Secondly, you can see that our mobile subscription rate and broadband subscriptions are pretty high. Third, we do have a digital ID program, which is called Nadra, and about 110 million Pakistanis are biometrically verified within a population of 241 million. Our gender ratio is 104.6, which means we have got 51% female and 49% male. So of course, women inclusion becomes a very important and key objective. If you go to the next slide, please. So why we started the RAS project or IPS project, we already had payment system operators, service providers. We had a private sector entity owned by banks, which is called OneLink. So all the ATMs are interoperable. We already had an interbank fund transfer facility, which is fully interoperable. Is my voice audible?
Somehow this is echoing, sir. This is you are audible, but the voice is echoing.
Okay. So shall I continue?
Yes, sir. Now this is fine.
Thank you. Thank you. So first thing, like the governor also mentioned, in Pakistan also, cash is still the king, and I like to call it's the emperor in Pakistan. We've got high currency in circulation, which is almost now touching to 10 trillion rupees these days. The informal economy size is very large, and of course, cash is free for everyone. It's ubiquitous. You don't need internet connectivity and telecommunications to access cash. So it's convenient as well. And then there are frictions in digital payments. There are still frictions, although they have gone down with the introduction of RAS. Number one is the extremely difficult UI UX for the users. To use digital payments is a challenge. It was a big challenge, I must say. The transactions were very expensive, and of course, people were, they didn't want to document their businesses. Trust was also a major issue because of the digital frauds, and banks were not interested in implementing newer solutions, upgrading their infrastructure. Skilled HR was also not very much available. And state banks, central banks' role was just to issue cash, and there was very minimum role in digital payments. Digital payments were increasing, but they were mostly in the hands of international payment schemes and private sector. So we thought how we can increase the role of state bank in digital payments. And finally, all our payment systems used to settle on T plus 0 or T plus 1 basis, T plus 1 or T plus 2 basis, which led the underlying institutions to overnight settlement exposure. And because of this exposure, it was raised to us by our auditors also that institutions, if they are settling, say, a Friday transaction on Monday morning, they were exposed to the settlement risk for the 2 days. So this was, again, from a regulatory perspective, also a big challenge for Pakistan. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the design principles for RAST. And we have taken inspiration from Gates Foundation's level 1 principles and some of the other. If you go to the next slide, you will see that the first principle is, of course, open loop access, which means that the underlying payment standard has to be interoperable. And so we selected ISO 20022 as the underlying payment standard. Please go to the next slide. The underlying principle of ISO 20022 was also chosen because of its increasing emphasis globally also for cross-border payments. And we thought that ISO 20022 will help us increase with other payment systems globally. Second, of course, the payments had to be real-time, instant, and of course, irrevocable with instant settlement. The system had to be pro-inclusion, which means that the participation has to be broad-based, supported and regulated by government authorities, easy to use. It should cover all basic use cases. So we chose bulk use case, person to person, and merchant and business use case. And I'll talk about that more in a while. Of course, we wanted, because in Pakistan, the fintech industry and third-party providers were also growing. So we need to have a system which was not much dependent on banks, and fintech should be able to directly connect to the system. The system had to be sustainable, which means it, at minimum, it should be across cost recovery basis operations or not for loss operations. And the system should be treated as a utility and public good. And of course, it should be supported by shared services, risk mitigation measures. So we were aware of the cybersecurity threats on faster payment systems, especially learning from lessons from countries like the UK, who were working extensively on faster payment systems. And we had to look at the AML and CFT compliance and the DFS fraud prevention. Next slide, please. So what was the project structure for RAST? So of course, the Central Bank, State Bank of Pakistan was the lead implementer, owner, and operator. Karandas Pakistan, which is a Section 42 NGO and a representative of Gates Foundation in Pakistan, they were responsible for procurements and disbursements to vendors. And the model was chosen because if the State Bank would have chosen to go for procurement themselves, we still have very cumbersome procedures for selecting vendors and paying them. And also, Karandas Pakistan was looking at totally at the procurement side, and State Bank was the implementation. And of course, Foundation was providing the financial and technical support. McKinsey and Company Pakistan were chosen for project management and overall coordination among the stakeholders. And from a governance perspective, we had, it was very simple. We had a project steering committee, which was led by the SBP Deputy Governor, and it had participations from SBP, Karandas, Foundation, McKinsey, and of course, the vendors as and when they were required. Next slide, please. So if you look at the next slide, it shows a brief journey. We started with the conceptualizing phase in 2016, and as I was hearing to the speakers today, I just recalled 2016 when we had a similar meeting in Dubai and later on in Karachi. We were thinking about what type of system we should have. So the process started in 2016. In 2018, we started working on the feasibility engagements and just looking at designs. We initially issued an EOI, and based on that, I think received interest from 20 or so vendors. We looked at their systems and then launched our first RFP, after which I think we received 14 proposals. And of those 14, we shortlisted 4 of them. And then there was meetings with the 4 vendors, and after that, we issued our second RFP. And after the 4 vendors were allowed to participate in the second round, and out of that, the final vendor was selected. We started and signed the contract, and the implementation started end of 2019, and unfortunately, in March 2020, COVID, I think the pandemic struck, and because of that, the supply chains were choked, and there were travel bans, and the system faced a big challenge. The project faced a big challenge, so we changed our strategy, and we broke the overall implementation into 3 different parts. And we said first we will launch the bulk part, which is a process whereby salaries and pensions and vendor payments can be disbursed by government entities and private sector. That we did in Jan 2021. And then in February 2022, we launched the second phase, which was RAS P2P, which is person to person. And this had a big feature, which is people can connect or link their mobile numbers to any of their bank accounts, and then just use those mobile numbers to receive payments from anyone. So the system would figure out where to send the payment. You just need to give the sender the mobile number. In I think June, July 2022, we launched our QR code standard for RAST, nationwide one QR code. And that was used for developing the third use case for us, which was person to merchant, or P2M, like we call it. It was soft launch of P2M was done in, I think, July or August 2023, but full launch was done in December 2023. And in March, we issued the implementation mandate to banks. So there were 2 categories of providers that were identified. One was customer service providers. So these are all the banks, EMIs, payment companies, and they were mandated that they would have the QR scanning facility in their apps. And of course, those banks who wanted to go into merchant acquisition, they were classified as MSPs or merchant service providers. And then in August 2024, we started work on integration and with regional players. So we signed an MOU with Arab Monetary Fund's Buna Switch. There are 22 members on that, and the idea was that we will link state banks RAST with the Buna. And in October, we crossed a milestone where we processed 1 trillion rupees in 16 days. And then in February this year, we issued RAS access criteria, which allowed third-party fintechs to directly connect to RAS for their payments. In March, State Bank decided to form a separate subsidiary for RAS operations. We call it RAS Payments Pakistan. It was incorporated as a private limited company. And on 1st July this year, the operations of RAS Payments started. A fully independent board was formed. Only our deputy governor is on the board as chairman. All other members are from private sector. And then we recently shortlisted our CEO also, and very soon we'll be announcing the name. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is RAS. So in Urdu, it's written that forget cash and just use RAS for your payments. And these are, so we continuously run awareness campaigns on print and social media and electronic media. And you can see these are clips from the marketing campaigns that we ran. We are mostly targeting women, we are targeting small entrepreneurs, and we are targeting young people and encouraging them to use RAS. So it is not just telling them please use RAS, but also how to use RAS. On the right, you can see this is the logo of RAS. If you go to the next slide, please. So I'll talk a bit about three use cases of RAS, which is first one is bulk payments. And bulk payments enables governments and private sector to send their salaries and bulk payments directly to the receivers. Previously, there was no such system for sending bulk payments. The initial uptake of bulk was very, very low, but then the government departments started using bulk for their payments. And today, I think the government, the federal government and the provincial governments are really eager on onboarding onto RAS bulk, and it's being used extensively these days. Like I said, person-to-person payments is a method whereby you can use payments, you can send payments to anyone or just using their mobile numbers. And the way we have set up the Active Directory, we call it CAS, Centralized Addressing Scheme. It's component of the instant payment system. That scheme or directory maintains a list of mappings. So it keeps a list of the identification number of the customer and then their account and the mobile number which is linked to that account. Customers in all their apps have the option of going and changing their banks and managing their RAST ID. And they can just give that RAST ID or alias, whatever you call it, to anyone to receive payments. We have also issued QR codes for everyone in their apps, so you can just show your QR code and receive a payment. And then finally, like I said, merchant payments is probably the most important part of RAST. It's an advanced suite of merchant services, including you can pay using QR code. Merchants can have their aliases. They can have multiple till IDs. They can use request to pay, which is mostly used for e-commerce payments. And then there is a fourth use case, which is payment initiation services, which is where third parties can send payment initiation request on behalf of their clients. So we sandboxed this fourth case recently, and inshallah, very soon we'll be issuing this also. Next slide, please. So this is again, I already talked about bulk P2P and P2M and PISP, and there are value-added services also. So since RAST is built on ISO 20022, it has got a rich API structure. We have, I think, exposed 70 plus APIs to the banks. So RAST is now also just not being used for payments, but also for certain data exchange related aspects. So for example, if a bank wants to verify credentials of a customer, they can use an API, like they can fetch the title of an account, or they can convert conventional account numbers into IBAN, which is the core of RAST. Governments and private sector can pre-validate payments. So they can first send a validation API, just verify whether the account is okay, there are no restrictions, and then once the bank responds with a yes, they can send the payment. We call it pre-val. It's mostly used by governments and stock exchange payments. And then end-to-end payment confirmation is there. This is called E2E feature, where banks and governments the players can actually look at end-to-end status of their payments in real time. Next slide, please. So these are some of the segments which we are working right now. Of course, there are customers, individual customers who use P2P. There are merchants. We are onboarding merchants, and recently Prime Minister of Pakistan has announced the cashless economy initiative that builds over RAST, and they have issued targets to banks to onboard 2 million customers by the end of this year. There are corporates are now using RAST for their bulk payments also. And even we have enabled RAST for over-the-counter transfers. So if somebody walks into their bank branch and wants to do an immediate transfer, they can use RAST from their bank counters also. Governments, especially local governments and provincial governments, are now increasingly using RAST, and we are also using RAST for social disbursements in Pakistan. Now, utility companies in Pakistan are printing RAST QR code on their bills. So, gas companies, electric companies, they are printing QR code. So, you don't need anything. You just use your app and scan that QR code from the bill, and you can make payments. And of course, fintechs and B2B players and supply chain players are also using RAST. So this space is expanding really fast. Next slide, please. So since RAST was launched, we have processed over 2.3 billion payments transactions. I think it would be touching to 2.4 billion now. We have processed 52 trillion rupees worth of transactions. There are 46 million registered RAST IDs, which means 46 million Pakistanis have linked their bank accounts, one of their bank accounts to RAST, and they use RAST ID for receiving payments. Over 1 million merchants are now registered with RAST QR. And right now we are doing over 6.5 million transactions a day. This is a bit, I think, a dated slide. The number is now touching to 6.5 to 7 million transactions a day as I speak today. On the right panel, you can see that initially the uptake on RAS was very slow, but now on a quarter by quarter basis, we are processing increasing number of transactions on RAS. So this is an average growth from January to June, 6 months. There was an 18% growth in volume and 26% in value. Next slide, please. This is what the national payments infrastructure of Pakistan looks like. So in the bottom middle, you can see we have got PRISM, which is our RTGS system. In June, we upgraded our PRISM to a new system called PRISM Plus, which is also built on ISO 20022. And the technology stack of PRISM Plus and RAST are now similar. Since RAST is integrated with PRISM Plus, it allows banks to move their liquidity very smoothly between both the systems. So liquidity management is also easier for the banks because as you will realize that in instant payment systems, the need for liquidity for banks goes up, and that is again a cost overhead for them. So we designed PRISM Plus and we designed RAST in a manner whereby banks can look at their liquidity position in real time and move liquidity between two systems as and when they require. So RAST and PRISM now form core of Pakistan's payment system. One is wholesale and one is instant, one is retail. On the right, you can see we've got payment system operators, of the largest of which is OneLink, which provides interbank fund transfers this is owned by banks. And then they've got bill payments, and of course it manages our domestic payment scheme called PayPal. We are also working on linking the payment card to RAST. NIFT processes checks, and then there are others who are linked to RAST. Of course, federal governments, provincial governments, stock exchange players, they are the ones who actually saw the value of instant payment systems. So they were really quick to onboard onto RAST. And on the left, you can see we've got banks and of course microfinance banks, EMIs and digital banks. Digital banks are new players in Pakistan, so they are right from day one they are integrated into RAST and they are RAST ready. And then we've got PSPs like fintechs, and we are now looking at the emergence of aggregators and super aggregators in Pakistan. So these are the players who will provide settlement services to the private sector merchants and businesses. Next slide, please. So this is how the infrastructure looks like as of June. So the figures are slightly provisional, I guess. So we have got about 226 million accounts and 96 million depositors. And of them, on the left, you can see we've got 92 million mobile banking app users. So some of them are banks apps, and I think 33 to 40% are banks apps, and rest are apps provided by smaller players, EMIs, fintechs, and branchless banking players. We have got 14 million users on internet banking and another 5 million e-wallet users. These are EMI small wallet users, mostly used by young people, students of colleges and universities who are now using these wallets and Rust as it's become a trendy life for them. And of course, these are the bank branches and branches banks. So on the bottom. So next slide, please. Just another view of the recent payment trends in Pakistan. Over 9 billion transactions were processed through banking channels, and of them, 88% were digitally processed. So processed using mobile apps and internet banking. But you can still see on the right, while the value processed by these players was over 622 trillion rupees, uh, almost 70% was processed on over the counter, which means that cash is not cash, basically checks and other paper modes, and of course cash is also to a certain extent being preferred by businesses. And we are now targeting as to how to transform this OTC business over the counter to digital. Next slide, please. So what did we do to measure, to promote RAS? Of course, one was regulatory backing. The fact that State Bank was the owner and was operating RAS gave a big comfort to the industry. And of course, our supervisory oversight was there, our mandates was there. And because of the mandate, banks were forced to actually opt for RAS. Otherwise, there was resistance from banks because they already had invested in other infrastructures and they were not really interested, or they didn't see the value of instant payment systems. Second, of course, free pricing for P2Ps. For person to person, we made it free, and our experience with COVID-19 pandemic showed that free works because of the free pricing. The number of digital transactions actually went very high in Pakistan. We were heavily engaged with banks and their vendors, and we were working with them as to how to integrate into Rust. We were even having sessions on user experience, UI UX design teams, and we were sitting with them, and the idea was to make the interface and the integrations more intuitive. And because a large number of people in Pakistan are sort of illiterate or semi-literate, it was very difficult for them to use English language-based apps. So we worked with the banks and the technology teams, and we are still working as to how we can make it simpler. We are also engaged with the IT boards of federal government and provincial government for government digitalization. Next slide, please. Of course, we and Karandas, Pakistan, we took marketing campaigns. Banks undertook marketing campaigns. We still run drives, nationwide drives in malls and in markets and in smaller markets. And we just engaged with the people coming there and tell them how to use Rust and digital payments in general. And we also participate in exhibitions. We go to universities, colleges, talk to students, and try to tell them about this. Next slide, please. Like I said, what are the challenges? And I think it's very important to understand these challenges. We discovered these challenges as we went along with the project. One was, of course, legacy infrastructure and capacity gaps of banks. Since we are using ISO 20022, the integration of ISO 20022 is quite challenging. Although once you integrate, it becomes easier to further scale. But the initial integration is challenging. We had HR gaps also in Pakistan. And we realized that banks were actually working on a patchwork of integrations with payment systems and other systems within their core banking systems. And the requirement of RAS was that it is directly integrated with the core banking system because users need to have access to their accounts, to their funds immediately. And that's where we face challenges. We still are facing challenges. RAS rules require that if even the sending bank system is down or RAS is down or the receiving bank system is down or if there is any issue, the transaction should immediately be returned. It should not be accepted. But we face instances where banks keep money for like 2 hours, 2 days, 1 day, and we continuously had to work with them to fix their systems. Of course, business models of banks are legacy. Banks make money by holding money. They don't like the idea of instant payments. You know, sending instant payments is a challenge for banks. So, and they heavily rely on international card schemes, which offer them incentives and other, facilities. Innovative business models were non-existent, but slowly and gradually, since we have started hand-holding fintechs, so this is now forcing banks to relook at their business models. Of course, vendor bottlenecks. There are RAS integration. It was such a massive project that there was a huge demand for vendors, which at one time became a bottleneck. So we also need to look at the landscape of vendors in the country. Of course, free model, big resistance. It was a big thing for the customers, but the supply side wanted to charge anything. They want to make money, and they were saying that, look, we can make money with cards and with other schemes, and why aren't you allowing us to make money? So that sort of a war is still on. That battle is still on, if I can put it like that. Of course, we didn't thought about having some adoption fund or creating incentives like payment cards. I think we are now working, we would now be working on some sort of an adoption fund and incentives. The government of Pakistan has recently announced a subsidy for all RAS QR transactions for merchants. They have allocated 3.5 billion rupees for the next 3 years, for every year. And so I hope that will also work. And of course, the team sizes with the banks and SBT, big challenge. So we also need to look at the HR planning of this project. Next slide, please. So this is just a slide on the Prime Minister's cashless economy initiative. So everybody is now feeling the heat of this initiative because there are very challenging timelines. But it's a good thing as well, because now the Prime Minister has given targets for the number of digital transactions over us, and number of merchants accepting digital payments. They have mandated all government departments to go digital by the end of this year. So there are different streams and different work groups who are working on this. But I think the good thing is that RAST is now the key pillar of this initiative. Next slide, please. Just the last slide, I guess. So some recommendations. I just included this slide last evening. I think it's a good idea to look at unserved business areas. So in case of Pakistan, e-commerce, government citizen services, and of course, corporate onboarding. These are the areas where we are focusing a lot, along with merchant digitization. Incentives, like I said, an adoption fund, I think needs to be there. And this debate should start right from day one about the business models and the adoption fund. While free is good to think about, it works, but some sort of a pricing number, I think, must be looked at. Of course, we need to have very, very strong SLAs and agreements with vendors. This is a 24/7 system. My team, who operates RAS for the last 4 years, our control room has never closed. It has never remained unmanned. We've got teams working 24/7 hours, 24/7 basis there. So of course, that needs to be looked at as well. And of course, fraud, like I said, would be challenging. Faster payments means faster fraud. So we are now looking at solutions that are industry-based and that are proactive in nature, using AI and machine learning and other new technologies. The idea is that let's try to identify the fraud first, and let's use that identification matrix for creating liability management tools for banks. So these are two areas closely interlinked: fraud management, scams, and then liability management. I think this also needs to be really think about in the start. And I think one area where we haven't done a lot formally is to establish technology partnership programs with vendors and innovation hubs, incubation centers, with education institutions, with IT parks, technology companies. We need to have some sort of a technology partnership program around the instant payment systems and the new business models that may be required. Lastly, I have included in the last slide, I have included some circulars that we issued for that outlines rules for RAS P2P, P2M rules. I have also included the QR code links to QR code circulars. All our reports are available online, and if anybody wants to use them, they're free to use. So with that, I will stop here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sohail Jawad, for your presentation and taking the time to join us virtually. I would now like to invite Mr. Stephen Martin Haley, Director of Market Development, and Ms. Julia Guetta, Technical Solutions Lead, Asia from the Modulo Foundation, to share how Mozaloop as an open source platform is being adopted globally and can contribute to building robust inclusive payments systems. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. My name is Steve Haley. I'm the Director of Market Development for the Mozaloop Foundation. I'm going to tell you what the Mozaloop Foundation is very shortly. First, I want to introduce two of my colleagues who are here because we have a Q&A, we have lunch as soon as we're done. And you can ask them any questions that you want. So first is Julie Guetta, who you're going to hear from very shortly, who works on our product and our Asia team. And I'd like to have James Bush in the back stand up very quickly. He's our Director of Engineering. So if there are any techies in the room, please don't ask me. Please ask him. All right, next slide, please. All right, so as I said, we are the Mozaloop Foundation. We believe in that everyone benefits from an economy that includes everyone. And first, I would like to thank the Honourable Governor for your comments earlier. The idea of including everyone into an economy is not just a charitable thing. This is something that actually grows the economy and is good for everyone. It includes tax benefits, it increases the GDP. An economy that includes everyone improves the lives of everyone. So please, next slide. Okay, so our mission is to increase the depth and richness of financial inclusion, not only the number of accounts that are out there, but how people are using those accounts and if those accounts are actually improving their lives. By empowering organizations to create interoperable payment systems that enable digital financial services for all. That is our mission as the foundation. Next slide. Oh, sorry, I'm doing it. I apologize. All right, so we've talked about instant payment systems, and we've talked about inclusive instant payment systems. And Joanna gave a great definition of inclusive payment systems. Ours is just slightly different in that generally most instant payment systems, if you think about Faster Payments UK as an example, most of them were built to be real-time and 24/7 and interoperable, but they primarily serve the purpose of making wire transfers faster. So all of us who need to send $2,000 from one person to another person, I don't have to wait 6 hours. But that's not really transformational to the economy. An inclusive instant payment system make sure that all classes of financial service providers are enabled to participate. And it's important to say enabled. It's not just that the central bank allows them to participate. We have to build a system that enables all of the financial service providers, and we heard earlier about the 700 MFIs, the 13 MFS providers, all of them have to be enabled to participate in the system. We have to focus on driving low-value transactions, sub 100 Dhaka transactions. Now that means that, again, if you build a system so that if I need to send 1 lakh, I can send 1 lakh. But if you focus on the 10,000 Dhaka transactions, the 1 lakh transactions, then the 100 Dhaka transactions are going to be a nuisance. They're not going to be the primary reason for having the system. So you have to design it for sub $1 transactions as the primary type of transaction that you're trying to enable. It has to obviously be irrevocable, but you need a high level of certainty. And one of the things that I think I'll talk about in a bit is certainty means low failed transactions. And most of these systems around the world are suffering from very high failed transaction rates, particularly when you start to include non-banks into a system. Next slide. Oh, sorry, wait, I keep forgetting I have this. The last thing I want to talk about is what we've talked about is, we heard it from Rost, that this is free. We heard it from Joanna, that the ideal is that this is free. Serving the last mile with very small transactions across different types of financial institutions with irrevocable transactions is a very expensive thing to do. It's expensive for the central bank, it's expensive for the financial institutions. And so how can we possibly be saying, yes, and then let's make this very expensive thing free? Particularly when, as Mr. Sohail was just talking about, a lot of financial institutions are very accustomed to making revenue off of transactions. So how do you make it free, where people are used to making money, and you make the cost even higher than it was before by offering something exceptionally better? So that is actually the purpose of the Mojib Foundation. How do we balance keeping the price low, preferably zero, but keeping the value high? And it has to be has to be higher than cash. The value of a digital transaction has to be higher than cash for people to switch. That is the core problem that we at the Mojib Foundation are trying to solve. There's obviously a lot more that goes into this than keeping costs down. Again, you have to keep value very high, everything that Joanna was talking about. But we have to figure out also how to keep costs down. So one of the things that, and I think if there are a number of financial service providers in the room, banks, you all have vendors, you all have enterprise software. One of the problems we often come is that when you're looking at what software you're going to use, when you're looking at what tools you're going to use, you primarily look at two costs. You look at you ask, how much is it going to cost to implement this? And how much is it going to cost to maintain this? And that's usually the only two things that come across in a big procurement, in a big RFP. The problem is that's not what any of the IPS hub operators and central banks we talk to worry about. The biggest thing they worry about is the change request. And we just heard from Rost about the number of iterations that they've gone through. Some of the other projects that we looked at earlier, such as UPI. Everyone talks about the great success south in UPI. But what they don't talk about is that UPI iterated about 5 times before they finally hit to a very explicit use case that drove transactions. So you have to have those constant change requests. But what happens is that most systems are built in a way that if the first version you don't like, you scrap the entire system and you start over. And that doesn't work very well either. So that's one of the biggest problems we face. The change request for integration. If you want to build it into the rest of your identity system, into your government payments, there's a lot of integrations that are required, and those change requests cost a lot of money. The biggest one actually is the onboarding and participation of the financial service providers. We heard from one central bank in Southeast Asia that one of their large mobile money providers had to pay the software provider, just the software provider, had to pay over $1 million to participate in the instant payment system. And so you can imagine that their small microfinance institutions are nowhere near that. Others, even if the technology is not the problem of you don't have to pay the vendor, the problem often comes with other things like the legal requirements and the fraud requirements and the other requirements that actually raise the cost for the small financial institutions. So with 700 microfinance institutions with 13 MFS providers, the system here can't afford to charge that much for participation. Failed transactions, I also talked about. Some of these systems around the world are actually having failed transaction rates as high as 5%. Now, if I have a failed transaction, and anyone who's sent money over SWIFT has probably had problems like this, then it's an annoyance for me. It's something where, oh, okay, I hope I get my $100 back, but it doesn't change my life. But for a lot of the people we're trying to serve, even if we're talking about 1,000, 10,000, especially 10,000 Dhaka, for a lot of the people we're trying to serve, that's major anxiety if that money disappears for even 5 minutes. If they don't know where that money is, they send the money, the receiver doesn't get it, they don't know where it is, for 5 minutes, they are never going to use your payment system again. And so you won't be able to scale. Fraud, we've talked about this also a lot today. Fraud, there's a great saying that the only safe payment system is between two people. We're trying to make a payment system here between over 100 million people. So clearly, it's not going to be a safe system. So we have to make sure that we include a lot of fraud systems or fraud monitoring systems to reduce those risks. And lastly, liquidity. A lot of these systems require incredibly high liquidity for settlement. So we have to reduce the settlement times, and we have to make sure we can include as many tools as possible to make sure that even the smallest microfinance and rural financial institution can participate in these systems, because those are the institutions that are serving the rural communities. So we talked about the cost drivers. The other problem we have is there are also inhibitors to scale. And I think one of the great slides that Joanna mentioned is that scale is required for low cost. But it's actually the other way around too. Low cost is required for scale. And so some of the inhibitors of scale that we come actually are the exact same things. We hear from every central bank, we hear from every national hub operator that these are the inhibitors that they have to reach scale. So inhibitors of low cost, but also the inhibitors of scale. All right, so now that's the problem we're trying to solve at the Modular Foundation, the problem we're very excited to work with Bangladesh to help solve, to be that little piece of your puzzle. So who are we? Modular Foundation is, well, I'll talk about three things. Modular Foundation, which is the organization that we work for. The Modular Platform, which is an open source software and tool set that will help build an instant payment system that solves a lot of the problems that Sohail talked about from Rost. And the community, which is all of the technology service providers, the payment companies that work within the Modular open source community. Very briefly, the foundation is guided by industry leaders. Our chair, Costa Perk, not only works for the Gates Foundation, but is the former chief architect at SWIFT. Our executive director, Paula Hunter, is the former lead of the Global NFC Forum. So the fact that anyone here can use a tap and pay is largely due to Paula's efforts. We have a board of directors, we have a technical governing board, and we have a number of community associations that make sure that we as the foundation are not the ones driving the technology. Now all of you, who are now members of the Modular community, are the ones who have governance over what this technology does in the future. We provide technical assistance on project design, procurement assistance, but what you know here is we don't do the implementation, we don't do the maintenance. The foundation is here to assist, but we believe that the capacity to implement and maintain an instant payment system is entirely within the country of the instant payment system and should not rely on foreign vendors, foreign expertise. Our goal is to make sure that all of that is as localized as possible, so that's why we don't provide any of those services. One of the other things that Sohail talked about was in working with the local technology companies, and that's something that we do very often. We try to do that before a project starts. So about 2 months ago, we kicked off a program to train Bangladeshi system integrators and technology companies on Moduloop, and my colleague Julie is going to talk about some of the outputs of that right when I'm done. All right, let me talk about the platform itself, the second piece. It is an open source, instant real-time payment platform, and to improve interoperability for digital payment systems. It's only the platform. It's not the operator. A lot of the things that we heard from Rost are the importance of that team that sits around the platform, and that's incredibly important. It also is not the scheme itself. You get to pick the rules that Joanna was talking about. It is only the platform. but that platform should be as responsive to the operations team and as responsive to the scheme and as responsive to the participants, the banks, the MFS providers, the microfinance institutions as possible. All right, here's where I'll spend a little bit of time. Mojaloop offers all account-to-account use cases. I've listed some here, but any account-to-account use case you can imagine, Mojaloop can provide for you. A few that I'd like to highlight is third-party payment initiation. You heard Rost just talking about it. And then also, if anyone, again, has looked at UPI, about almost 97% of transactions happen by third-party fintechs, not by banks. And that's where that has been, that is driven. So Mojaloop offers third-party payment initiation out of the box. Obviously P2P and P2B. One of the other ones though is agent banking, so cash in and cash out at agents, and we've heard about the growth of agent banking from the governor, and I think that's incredibly exciting. So the idea of eventually adding in interoperability at agents, I think is a potentially very exciting opportunity here. And as well as cross-border payments, and with the larger remittances coming into Bangladesh, that's also incredibly important to bring down the cost of cross-border remittances. But again, any use cases you can imagine. The key advantages of the way Mojaloop was designed, and this is important for any of you who are going to be working on this program and understanding Mojaloop, is that it was designed slightly differently. We do use international standards like ISO 20022, but it was specifically designed for low-value, high-volume transactions, and for equal participations of banks, of non-banks and non-banks, including wallets, MFS, and microfinance, and particularly to carefully manage the risks between those. And like I said, most of the challenges that a lot of IIPSs have had in the world has been when banks and non-banks try to transact with each other. And because that can include a lot of additional risk. It also, I'll go to the last one. It focuses on feature phones. So people using USSD in areas that have bad connectivity. Because one of the biggest challenges is the USSD can fail, the connectivity can fail. Now, this doesn't solve that, but what it makes is so that at any point, if that connectivity fails, the transaction is clear where it has failed. And so that person in the middle of their USSD session, the transaction fails, that person's money is never going to be lost. And they're confident that their money is never going to be lost. It is open source. What does that mean that it's open source? It means there's no vendor lock-in. It means that from day one, Bangladesh owns this system. Nobody owns IP outside of this country. It's free to license, free to change, free to examine. And so that means that if you don't like your vendor, you don't need to scrap your entire system. You can just change your vendor. You can change your service provider. If you want multiple service providers, you can change your service provider. You want a different use case that your service provider is not giving you, you can give another one. If you're a financial institution and you want to know how better to integrate into the system, how better to use the system, there's no surprises. So it is basically, if you're trying to decide, should we build our own system or should we buy a system or rent a system from a vendor, this is a better way to build. The technical support, like I said, we hope that most countries don't need any technical support, but some don't have the capacity and the knowledge yet to be able to do that. Bangladesh is not an example of that. But so we've designed this for either option. If a country wants to outsource everything, we have plenty of companies, including folks like KPMG. If you want to outsource everything to them, they will gladly take your money. But hopefully, you don't need to do that because that's an expensive option. But we also hope that countries that use Mojaloop can then outsource their knowledge to other countries. And that's, let me just say that again, the idea that a local system integrator, a local technology company can then turn into an international vendor of payment systems using Mojaloop is incredibly exciting. And that's one of the things that's actually very exciting for us about working in Bangladesh. But that's actually already happened. Currently, and I'll talk about our deployments, but The Rwandan company that was hired to build the Mojaloop in Rwanda for their central bank is now building has now been contracted by the Central Bank of South Sudan to build their national payment system. The Myanmar company that built the first Mojaloop that I ever worked on has now been contracted by the Central Bank of Liberia to build their instant payment system. And so it's very possible, and I think very likely, that we would see that Bangladeshi firms that get experience on Mojaloop will become very marketable to other countries, to other central banks, to build their Mojaloops. Currently, we have about 20 service providers. If you want to take a look on our service provider directory soon, that will be about 30, because we are at this moment growing quite quickly. Our community has over 14,000 people in about 47 countries. And so it is a very robust community. And those are top technology companies from most countries we work in. That includes central banks, that includes national hub operators. All right, now what everyone wants to know. Where is this being done? Because nobody wants to be the first. So a previous presenter talked about TIPS, the Tanzania Instant Payment System. Tanzania was the first country that used an early version of Mojaloop. It's since evolved significantly since that. And I would say the first country to use the more modern version of Mojaloop is Rwanda for their Rwanda National Digital Payment System. Rwanda is an interesting example of what I talked about before. They had an instant payment system. It was live with P2P. It was working pretty good for P2P. But the problem is they asked their vendor to provide them a merchant payment solution. And the cost that the vendor quoted them to build a merchant payment system was higher than building an entire Mojaloop from scratch. And so they said, why are we going to do that? And then next, what happens when we want G2P payments? What happens when we want to change to our merchant payments? What happens when we want payment initiation? Every single time we have to pay the cost of our entire payment system again. And so they decided that for merchant payments only, they would use Mojaloop because it's the same cost. They've since, before they even went live, they realized it was better than their existing system. And so they've already started migrating the original P2P, and they'll be decommissioning their proprietary software very soon. We also have a cross-border system. The COMESA region, which is 21 countries across Africa, is starting with 8 countries to build a cross-border instant payment system using Mojaloop. That is targeted to go live next quarter. We have the Myanmar microfinance digitization. This is an interesting project, again, my first project, which is an example of sometimes there is a system that is built only for banks, but there are a lot of non-banks that also want to be included. And so we're seeing more and more countries going this route where a deployment was built specifically for the non-banks, in this case starting with microfinance, but then inviting the MFS providers to join their scheme as well, which would have then been interoperable with the bank scheme. At this point, because of everything that's happened in Myanmar in the past few years, that system is not being used, so I can't give you transaction data for it. But prior to their change of government, that system did go live. In the Philippines, a company called Higala. So sometimes these are central bank driven, and sometimes a private company decides that they need to step in and they want to do it themselves. And that's also very possible in the Mojaloop world. So in the Philippines, they have an instant payment system, but it largely excluded the rural banks. The Philippines has 420 rural banks that serve all of the islands in the Philippines that most of the banks don't want to go to. And the central bank very much wanted to somehow get to those islands. But unfortunately, their national payment system was very difficult for rural banks to connect to. Out of 420, I think they only had about 5 that have successfully connected to their instant payment system. And so Higala has built a Mojaloop explicitly to connect all of the rural banks and then allow those rural banks to connect into the national payment system. Others currently in deployment, I've talked about South Sudan, and that one has just kicked off. Togo has been building their own system with no support from any vendors. The government hired engineers in-house, and they, just by going through our online training, have been able to deploy and have started onboarding their first financial institutions. The Central Bank of Liberia, this is an interesting one. We heard about we think about these things as major projects. The Central Bank of Liberia contracted a service provider to deploy their Mojaloop, and within 73 working days, they did their first live transaction. I don't recommend that all the time. That they definitely took on some risks that other central banks might not want to do, but that was their decision. Speed was more important. And now that they've gone live, they're going to spend the next year hardening that system. But the point is, you can move that fast if you really want to with a system like Mojaloop. The Gambia has also just recently contracted their service provider, and we expect that they're actually going to go live by the end of this year as well. And Cape Verde is a little bit behind them. We also have 4 other countries who, unfortunately, it's not up to us to talk about countries. We leave it to the countries. All of these countries have made public statements about Mojaloop, so we can talk about them. But there are 4 other countries who are currently deploying Mojaloops that have chosen not to make public announcements yet. So I don't speak for them. And so all in all, by mid next year, there should be at least 10 countries, probably 12, that are live with Mojaloop. Okay. Again, thank you very much. And thanks. I'm not done yet. So the next thing I want to talk about is our accelerator program of system integrators. And before I kick it off to Julie to introduce the Bangladeshi system integrators we work with, I just want to highlight that, and she'll say the same thing. We just started this program with the Bangladeshi technology companies a few months ago. They've really only had 3 or 4 weeks to learn about Mojaloop, to go through the online training, and what they've been able to accomplish is pretty incredible. We've actually never seen this in other countries before. So this is why we're incredibly excited about what the Bangladeshi tech system will bring to us. This will definitely be, for our deployments, an example of, we can already tell, an example where Bangladesh is definitely going to give more to Mojaloop than Mojaloop gives to Bangladesh. We're quite clear of that. So without further ado, I do want to introduce Julie to talk about the accelerator program. I apologize. Before we kick off with that, I do want to give an example from Rwanda. We have a short video to show from showing a Mojaloop in action in Rwanda, if we can.
Managing your money should be simple. That's why I use eCash. Whether you're on a smartphone, a basic feature phone, eCash works for everyone. Beyond sending money to friends, did you know that eCash now allows you to pay merchant codes from any wallet, bank, or Circle account? Watch how easy it is. Simply dial *182#, then click the send money option, and then go to the eCash option. After that, you put the merchant code, put the amount of money you're going to send, put your PIN, and send your money. See, it's instant, inclusive, and most importantly, affordable.
And one of the things, there's a few things I want to highlight in that short video, because I live in Rwanda, so I can tell you a little bit about what that means. The *182 USSD code is actually the USSD code for the mobile money, the 2 main mobile money operators. So you didn't see a special code that was created for their national payment system. It was integrated into their financial service provider. So what you basically saw was the equivalent of somebody doing a Bcash transaction where they were given an option to use eCash within the menu of the mobile money provider, if who they were sending to was in a different provider. So again, it's a way to say it has to be integrated into the financial service provider. And in Rwanda, the leading mobile money provider has, I would say, close to 80% market share. It is everywhere, but now if you are transacting with somebody outside of that mobile money provider, it's as seamless as doing it within the mobile money provider. So that was the purpose of that transaction, and especially also for using merchant payments. So with that, I will introduce Julie. Thank you.
Hi. So before I invite two Bangladeshi system integrators, Spectrum and ITC, on stage to actually showcase their work, let me first share a bit more about the Modular Loop Accelerator programs that Steve just mentioned. So as Steve highlighted, the Modular Loop platform is completely free to use, and it's open source. And as such, it serves as basically foundation to develop digital financial infrastructure. But the foundation also believes that technology is great, but grooming and developing local talent is as critical for the platform to succeed and reach the scale and the adoption that I think Joanna and Steve and also Rust and the people on stage mentioned this morning. For this reason, in every country where Modular Loop is soon to be deployed, the foundation aims for governments and local technology companies to fully understand the platform so that they can leverage it to the best of its capabilities. And this is exactly why the Modular Loop Foundation Accelerator program was created. It empowers local actors, such as the two system integrators that you're going to see on stage in a minute, with technical and functional knowledge to deploy, customize, and maintain a Modular Loop-based inclusive instant payment system. The programs combine online session, in-person training, and hands-on experience. And you're going to see very soon about the hands-on experience. Here in Bangladesh, as Steve mentioned, the cohort began in August. Out of 9 local companies that originally registered interest, 6 went through the training, and 2 have been selected today to demonstrate the environment they built and the use case they have configured. I think Steve mentioned it already. What really, really makes this cohort truly remarkable is, I would say, their knowledge process, which have been coming from not knowing about Modular Loop at all, and being now able to deploy an almost production-ready system with 2 of the use cases that were mentioned this morning, so P2P transaction and G2P transaction. What you are about to see and what they are about to show you through videos is not a mock-up system. Is not basically a fake interface where you see a payment flow. This is a real system with transaction flowing on the system. Obviously, fake money, but real system. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome on stage Spectrum. We will first demonstrate that work, and then we'll be followed by ITC.
Hello, we are from Spectrum Engineering Consortium Limited, and today we'll be presenting a short demonstration on the implementation of Modular IIPS, or Inclusive Instant Payment System. Before I begin, we would like to present a short...
Thank you. So hello everyone, good morning, Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Faisal Bari. I am the CTO of Spectrum Engineering. So I graduated from BUET, and I was also a faculty member there, and then I did my PhD from University of Waterloo in distributed systems and AI. That's before the whole LLM hype. So at Spectrum, we have been privileged to work on a lot of complex system integration projects in Bangladesh, like the Bangladesh Bank's RTGS system, batch system. We were the local vendor for that. And then the Bangladesh Bank CA, we are also the local vendor for that one as well. We are also working currently with NBR and Web Fontaine, who is our foreign partner, to establish the first Bangladesh national single window in Bangladesh. So it will connect NBR, CNF agents, and banks all together in one system. So in parallel, we have been always a big proponent of open source software. Currently, we are working with 12 banks in Bangladesh to establish and local interbank network for transmitting LC. And we are using a similar product, similar to Mozaloop. It's called Xroad from Estonia, and another product from Linux Foundation, Hyperledger Fabric. It's a permission blockchain network to build this network. So within this network, you can transmit your LCs and any other documents interbank. So with that foundation, my team, as you can see, we have a very young team. Sanjay is our team lead, and Abid is our technical lead for Mozaloop. So we have deployed multiple versions, and we have set up multiple scenarios to play with bulk payment, P2P payment, and then P2G payment, merchant payment that we saw during the presentations. So this young and creative team has established scenarios, and they have done hands-on experiments with them to see how Mozaloop works. And some of that, a subset of that has been put into this video you are going to see. So with that, I'm going to end my speech and then hand over to the video. So please. Please start the video. Thank you.
Diagram of how modular IPS works. There are two end users from two digital finance service providers, or DFSPs. Now these DFSPs can be banks, bKash, Nagad, Rocket, etc. And the end users are under those particular DFSPs. The users can be general users or merchants. And at the middle, as you can see here, there is an IPS hub or Mozaloop switch which will monitor all of the transactions between the DFSPs and will be observed in turn by Bangladesh Bank. As you can see here, this is a use case scenario from our previous table slide. As you can see here, the bKash mobile wallet sends transactions through the Mozaloop IIPS hub to the bank, and which in turn sends it to a fintech or merchant. In this particular slide, we have deployed a scaled down version of Mozaloop Helm deployment within our cloud servers. As you can see here, it is a testing toolkit that has been used to test the P2P test case scenario transaction. Now this P2P transaction here is essentially, there's two DFSPs, as you can see in the bottom, there's Sonali Bank and bKash, which we will discuss more in our demo section of this presentation. In this slide, as you can see here, we are showing our standard provisioning collection, which is a Mozaloop test case for our local deployment, in which we had a total of 460 assertions, in turn which returned 100% passed percentage, where all of those assertions did not fail and in turn passed accordingly. Now we will perform a P2P transfer by using the testing toolkit. For example, there are two DFSPs, Pink Bank and Green Bank. To show the demo, we'll have to do the provisioning first. So in the provisioning section, we have to put down the payer's name and MSIDN, which is essentially a phone number that the database can later look up to find out the exact provision payer that we are generating right now. So while it goes through, we can actually discuss some of the other stuff that we have here. As we can see, the payer will essentially be looked up from the database based on their MSIDN, and in turn we can then select a quotation, a particular quotation format, so which means essentially how much it will cost to send that particular transaction to the receiver. Now this process takes a little bit of time, so we might have to wait a little bit. Looks like our provisioning is complete, so just like we mentioned earlier, we will just look up the phone number, and we should be able to get the user here. And as you can see, we have the user here. We can just put down an amount we want to send, put down the currency, and get a quotation based on for the cost that it will cost us to send that transaction through. Since this is a testing environment, we won't need to pay anything in terms of fees or commissions, but we can set that if we required to be necessary. As you can see here, the transaction has indeed gone through, and it should be mentioned that between the DFSP's transactions, all of these transactions are going through the module loop switch, which is in the middle and basically observes all of the transactions that goes from and through each DFSPs. Now moving on, we can check the hub console for our settlements. Here, as we can see, we can pick a settlement model from here, and which will execute shortly. It will refresh our accounts and settlements as well. It will create a new settlement ID for us, which will update the amount of transaction that we did. As we can see, it has made given us the DFSPs and the amount that has gone through in this transaction. Now we will move on to the module loop switch, which will be the Bangladesh Bank's finance portal, who will be able to monitor each of the transactions from their end as well. So if we check the timers properly here, so we can actually observe each of the payments that has gone through. We can find them very easily. So as you can see here, just the payment we just did, we can actually see it here. And it contains all of the information that we had previously put in, including the amount, pairs, name, ID, currency, including their MSSIDN as well. We can also view the technical details like their names, information, lookup events, quotation events, and transfer events as well. Now, another one of these features on the business financial portal is the financial positions. So each time a settlement has gone through, it will also shift and change to reflect that change here as well, which can be monitored by the module loop switch, which will be under Bangladesh Bank's purview. So for the final portion of our demo, I'll be showing you the security end as well here for each transaction on how they are essentially handled in the back end as well. So as you can see here, the transfers that went through earlier, and all of these events are essentially logged in the back end according to their particular APIs. To ensure that each of these transfers are secure, we can see here that each of these transfers are essentially requiring a handshake method for them to be valid and to be deemed complete. So for each transfer, as you can see here, each of these APIs send out a request and receive a response in return to make sure that yes, it has indeed gone through and is complete, and be only deemed valid when the response is received by the sender DFSP. So this in turn means basically the handshake process needs to be complete for any transfer to go through properly. So that was all we wanted to showcase in our demo for today. Thank you for listening, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. We are available to answer any of your queries. And thank you. Have a good rest of your day. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So just to summarize, what we saw here is a subset of what we have done with Mozaroop in this short time. We have already achieved a strong expertise on Mozaroop, and we are confident that we can do whatever is possible with it. So just to conclude, I would like to say that Spectrum is one of the largest SI in Bangladesh. Our expertise spans from data centers up to developing applications, so the entire stack. We have developed many secured banking applications, and as I said, we are working on this project called Green LC that is connecting multiple banks in an interbank network. And also with that, I would like to conclude and say that we are going to stick around. If you have any questions, you can ask us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again on your great work. I think earlier today, the fact that Bangladesh Bank want to move quite fast was mentioned. Look at what has been achieved in only 6 weeks, right? To this, I'd like to welcome on stage the second SI that was selected by the program. ITC, please, for your presentation and video.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Zubair Ahmed. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of IT Consultants PLC. Firstly, I would like to give thanks to Mozilla Foundation to give us the opportunity to participate in the Accelerator program. I think all of you know about our company, IT Consultants. We are one of the largest payment system operator in Bangladesh, working here since 2000. We are working for 35 banks for their debit credit solutions and operate their ATM and POS. So now I would like to hand over my colleague Islauddin, who is the project manager for the Mozilla Foundation project. Thank you.
Greetings to all distinguished guests. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammad Islauddin. I'm the Senior Project Manager of IT Consultant PLC. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mozilla Foundation, for giving us such an opportunity to showcase our demonstration. So without wasting time, I'm right away jumping to our presentation. Well, go to the next slide. For the last 25 years, we have been a pioneer in providing financial services to over 36 banks and some other MFS companies. And surprisingly, we are not unaware of Mozilla, what it is, how it works. But after 6 weeks of accelerators programs, now we are able to deploy the entire Mozilla solutions into our data centers. And we have already deployed and already executed some test cases. And today I'm going to present P2P and G2P transactions. Basically, my presentation is divided into two parts. First part is this PowerPoint, and the next part is video demonstration. Go to the previous slide. Okay. So previous guest already said what about Mozilla Loop. So we have learned about some facts of Mozilla Loop. That is, it's a interoperable systems in real time, making it possible to make transactions, P2P transaction and others. And also it serves as the primary layer between the FSPs. And of course, it promotes the economic expansions through developing inclusive digital payment systems. Next slide, please. So continues to move with the Mozilla Loop. Although we have already deployed our systems in our data centers and executed some test cases as well, but still we are in learning phases, and hopefully in coming days we'll be able to deploy some other important use cases. So without wasting time, I am right away jumping to the video presentation. So this is the dashboards. So before initiating, please stop the sound, please. So before initiating any transactions, we need to do some prerequisites with some setting parameters. And the first case is P2P, where we have downloaded the files and some rules from the Mozilla Loop. And we have to first run the test, and these are the scenarios, what technical details, so what Mozilla Loop engines or receives and responds accordingly. So all 31 is passed. Also, there's the technical details. So this is the status of execution. So this is our mobile simulator, also downloaded from the Mozilla Loop. So these are some prerequisites just to execute the exertions, whether it's working fine or not. So it passed. Now we are going to make a P2P transaction. At first, we have to put our mobile number as the account number, and then the Mozilla Loop engines fetches the data from the respective banks and shows the user information, bank information with name, so that the user is certain about the right person. And as it selects the amount and currencies, and this is also the technical details what model of engines receives and responds accordingly. So I put 100 as the amount and select the currencies and get codes. Get codes basically it's authorization process being carried out by module of switches, whether it's complied in terms of all rules. So once it gets passed, then proceed button is enabled. So every time we are showing what the technical details module of engine receives and responses accordingly. This is very important for the developer. If any error encounters, that they can take care of this. Now we click on proceed. So as soon as we click on the proceed, the transaction is made in real time. Look at this. Now we can see the another section transfer. Here also the technical details, what module of engines receives from the user and what the responses accordingly. So now we are moving into the D2P. So similar to P2P transactions, we have to also set some parameters, prerequisites as well. That here also we need to run the test after selecting the bulk file, which we have already downloaded from the modules, with associated some services and assertions as well. So we're seeing how many services is there and how many has passed and failed. So this is very important to get past all things, because without this we cannot proceed to the transactions. So we can see there are some other insertions. Total associated services is 2617, all are passed. And this is the reports, technical reports. And the most crucial part is this. So if you encounter any problem during the process, that will be displayed here. And this is all about our presentation today, and it makes us quite comfortable with this, and we are very much confident about that. We can, since we have already deployed the entire module of application hub into our data systems, and we have already run successfully to use cases, so we are quite confident to do in upcoming days the other services, which is important. And thank you very much from my side.
Thank you very much to both. So as you've been able to see for both demonstrations, they really deploy real environment, one regression test, and so on. So that's why I could say during my introduction that it was almost production-ready environment. The team will be here to discuss more about what they've done, and we are here as well for further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last thing I'd like to say, 2 points that I think that the last presentation emphasized. These are deployed in their data centers in Bangladesh. These are, even though it looks very pretty, these are things that they did by themselves with no help from us. They deployed in their data center. And the other thing was, anyone ever watch the Olympics? Anyone ever watch like gymnastics or something in the Olympics? And you watch that and you think, oh, that looks really easy. You just watched some companies show a whole bunch of tests that all of the tests passed. And it makes it seem like, oh, that's easy, 100 tests pass, or 1,000 tests pass. It's not that easy. They were able to very successfully do all that with no tests failing. That was incredibly exciting for us to watch, but I know if you don't know what's behind those systems, it doesn't look as exciting. So Again, thank you very much. And if you have any questions on Mojib, all of us and the system integrators are here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen and Ms. Julie, for your presentation, and Spectrum and ITC for the demonstrations. Due to the time constraint, we are not having the question and answer session. And now I would like to invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Ahsan H. Mansur, to share few words in Bangla for the media.
Thank you. I got a request that I need to summarize in Bangla so that it can be used for local media and so on. So আমি বাংলাতেই বলবো আজকের যে অনুষ্ঠানটা এটা অর্গানাইজ করা হয়েছে আমাদের গেটস ফাউন্ডেশন এবং পিআরআই থেকে। এটার মূল উদ্দেশ্যটা হচ্ছে যে একটা ইন্টারঅপারেবল ইনস্ট্যান্ট পেমেন্ট সিস্টেম ডেভেলপ করা, যেটার মাধ্যমে আমরা যে কোনো ব্যক্তি যে কোনো স্থান থেকে যখন ইচ্ছা তখনই একটা পেমেন্ট করতে পারবেন বা বিনিময় করতে পারবেন, টাকার বিনিময়ে পণ্য বা সেবা যে কোনো কিছু কেনার জন্য। এবং এটা ইনস্ট্যান্টলি যে কোনো মোবাইল অ্যাকাউন্ট থেকে বা ব্যাঙ্ক অ্যাকাউন্ট থেকে বা নন ব্যাঙ্ক অ্যাকাউন্ট থেকে বা ইভেন মাইক্রো ক্রেডিট ইনস্টিটিউশনের অ্যাকাউন্ট থেকে সরাসরি অন্য যে কোনো অ্যাকাউন্টে চলে যেতে পারবে। তো এই সিস্টেমটা আমরা এখনও মানে ডেভেলপ করতে যাচ্ছি বাংলাদেশে। এটা ইন্টারঅপারেবল সিস্টেমটা চেষ্টা করা হয়েছিল কিন্তু সফল হয় নাই। আমরা নতুন করে এটা একটা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল প্রতিষ্ঠান যেটা গেটস ফাউন্ডেশন, তাদের সাহায্য নিয়ে মোজালুব ফাউন্ডেশনের থ্রুতে, যেটা ইন্টারন্যাশনালি অনেকগুলো দেশে টেস্ট করা হয়েছে। আমরা এখানে পাকিস্তানের যে এক্সপিরিয়েন্সটা সেটাও শুনলাম এবং ইট ইস এ ভেরি পজিটিভ একটা এক্সপিরিয়েন্স, যেটা থেকে আমাদের শিক্ষণীয় আছে এবং আমাদেরকে ইন্সপিরেশনও দেবে। পৃথিবীর অনেকগুলো দেশে এটা টেস্টেড, সো ইট ইজ টাইম টেস্টেড, ইট ইজ কান্ট্রি টেস্টেড। এটাকে আমরা বাংলাদেশে চেষ্টা করব সাকসেসফুলি ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে খুব দ্রুততার সাথে, যাতে আমরা একটা ক্যাশলেস ইকোনমির দিকে আমাদেরকে এগিয়ে নিতে পারি। আমরা অনেকখানি উন্নতি করেছি, আমাদের বিকাশ, নগদ, আমাদের ইন্টারনেট ব্যাংকিং সিস্টেম এগুলো অপারেট করছে। আমাদের ওয়ালেট, প্রায় অনেকগুলো ব্যাংকেরই ওয়ালেট আছে যেগুলো ইন্টারনেট করছে, কিন্তু তারপরেও আমরা চাচ্ছি যে একটা সামগ্রিকভাবে সবার ক্ষেত্রে প্রযোজ্য একটা ইউনিফাইড ন্যাশনাল পেমেন্ট সিস্টেম, যেটা ইনস্ট্যান্টলি এক জায়গা থেকে আরেক জায়গায়, এক ব্যক্তি থেকে আরেক ব্যক্তি বা একটা প্রতিষ্ঠান থেকে আরেকটা প্রতিষ্ঠানে ট্রান্সফার করতে পারবে অর্থ বা আমাকে পেমেন্টকে সেটেল করে দিতে পারবে, সেই ধরনের। এটা আমাদের ক্যাশলেস ইকোনমির জন্য একটা বিশালভাবে সহায়ক হবে। বাংলাদেশে আমরা 20,000 কোটি টাকার ক্যাশ সিস্টেম অপারেট করছি প্রতি বছর। 20,000 কোটি টাকা আমাদের ব্যাংকিং খাত থেকে খরচ হচ্ছে জাস্ট ক্যাশ ম্যানেজমেন্ট করার জন্য। এবং এটা ছাড়াও ক্যাশকে বিভিন্নভাবে ব্যবহার করে আমাদের অনেক অনৈতিক কার্যক্রমও হচ্ছে যেগুলো বন্ধ হতে পারে, বেআইনি কার্যক্রম হচ্ছে যেগুলো বন্ধ হতে পারে, ছিনতাই ইত্যাদি বন্ধ হতে পারে। এবং এইসব কারণে আমরা মনে করি যে বাংলাদেশকে ক্যাশলেস অর্থনীতির দিকে নিয়ে যেতে হবে, তাহলে আমাদের অর্থনৈতিক প্রবৃদ্ধিও বাড়বে, আমাদের রাজস্ব বাড়বে এবং আমাদের জননিরাপত্তারও ব্যবস্থা হবে। তো সব মিলিয়ে এই ইন্টারঅপারেবল সিস্টেমটা আমাদের ক্যাশলেস সোসাইটির দিকে এগিয়ে যেতে ব্যাপকভাবে সহায়ক হবে বলে আমরা মনে করি। আমরা মনে করি যে বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংক, গেটস ফাউন্ডেশন এবং মোজালুব ফাউন্ডেশনের সাথে যোগাযোগের মাধ্যমে আমাদের এখানকার আমাদের অভ্যন্তরীণ যে ক্যাপাসিটি আছে প্রাইভেট সেক্টরে এবং বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংকে, সেটাকে ব্যবহার করে আমরা খুব দ্রুত সময়ের মধ্যেই এই ইন্টারঅপারেবল সিস্টেমটাকে বাংলাদেশে চালু করতে পারবো এবং এটা একটা সাকসেসফুল অপারেশন হবে, এটাই আমাদের প্রত্যাশা। এই লক্ষ্যে আমরা ব্যক্তি খাত, ইন্টারন্যাশনাল সাপোর্ট ফ্রম গেটস ফাউন্ডেশন, মোজালুব ফাউন্ডেশন, আমাদের অভ্যন্তরীণ যে ক্যাপাসিটি বিল্ড আপে তারা সহায়তা করছে, সেটার জন্য আমরা তাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ দিচ্ছি এবং সেই প্রক্রিয়াটাও যেন চলমান থাকে, কারণ আমাদের নিজেদেরকেই সামর্থ্যটা ডেভেলপ করতে হবে। এবং এটা অন্যান্য দেশেও হয়েছে। কাজে আমাদের যে ইয়াং এন্টারপ্রেনিউর ক্লাস আছে, আইটি নেটওয়ার্ক, আইটি সিস্টেম যারা ডেভেলপ করছেন, তাদের যথেষ্ট পটেনশিয়াল আছে, সেটাকে আমরা ব্যবহার করে বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংকের ভিতরেও আমাদের যে পটেনশিয়াল আছে সেটাকে ব্যবহার করে আমরা এটাকে সাকসেসফুলি ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে পারবো বলে আমরা আশাবাদী। তো আপনাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের জন্য। অনুষ্ঠান চলবে সেকেন্ড পর্যায়ে। এখন সবাইকে হোস্টদের পক্ষ থেকে আমি লাঞ্চের আমন্ত্রণ জানিয়ে শেষ করছি।
Thank you, sir. Now we will break for the lunch and return promptly at 2 p.m. for the panel discussion. Thank you, everyone. Please enjoy your meal.